What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? So, we're in here tonight, working on the right rally car, and I'm going to talk to you about Rx7 Rallye suspension and the things you should do to make sure that you're not going to hit a pothole on a rally stage and break all your stock suspension. So, first things first out of the gate, there's no problem with taking a bone stock suspension car, slapping a cage in it, and taking it to a rally stage and having a good time. Okay, you're not going to go any slower or faster or whatever your first few times racing rally having a bunch of money in your car versus having just a car to go have fun. The most important thing is to get on the stage, get driving, get behind the wheel. You'll find things you like and want to change as you start racing. So, with all that in mind, this car we've started with is an 84 Rx7 GSLSE. For those who know RX-7s, you're probably watching this video, you know what that means. A GSLSE gets you, it's like a Z28 Camaro. You got bigger brakes on the SE, you got bigger engine, you get a sunroof, power windows, fancy seats, you get the whole deal with this car. So, all that stuff, what still is retained on this rally car, the only thing we kept from a GSLSE basically, the engine and the big brakes. So, on these cars, big brakes means bigger spindle diameter, bigger wheel bearing, stronger strut, and just overall a better package, right, for running. Now, in rally you don't need huge brakes and you don't need mad suspension. You do not need to put a lift kit on your rally car. All it's going to do is make you feel like you're going to flip over more. You still want to stay low. Same principles as road racing. Lower the center of gravity, the better. Now, what does that hurt you in though? If you're too low and you catch a ditch a little bit, you might board slide your car, right? So you gotta keep balance. So this car has the racing beat springs in the back, coilovers in the front. But it's probably honestly at stock height, if not a little bit lower than stock height, and that's probably about it. So don't think ride height's huge. The big thing for ride height and rally is just keep any low-hanging fruit off the bottom of your car. So skid plate, you want it. Tidy up all your wires, speedo cable, the whole deal. Get it all up out of the way. Get the exhaust up. You don't want to be dragging stuff because it will drag and it will break. So that's your ride height setup. Now, suspension-wise, on this car, what's done and what's important. So this is done on this car and my yellow car. You're going to see some reinforcement gussets welded in here on this spindle. Now, basically this plate is welded to the backing plate of the brake caliper and where that mounts. And then there's also a big plate like a shark fin welded to the strut. Now what is that doing? That's keeping the spindle, which is this piece that the wheel bearing rides on, from having a moment on the strut tube. And what that's keeping is just flex. So you won't get any crazy things, you won't bend your strut tube, everything's happy, everything stays in line. Now, moving from here, okay, we're going to move down to the lower control arm. The lower control arm on this car and on my car is extended 1 inch. Okay, so why do you do that? In rally, you're going to have, especially with a rear-wheel drive car, you're going to spend a lot of time turning, right? Drifting, we'll say, sliding, the whole deal. And what that's going to do is when you turn a wheel, say we have zero camber, and you turn the wheel and you're sliding sideways, your car is going to create positive camber and you're going to lose front-end grip. So by setting your car up with negative camber, in drift or in a corner, when you're turned and traveling sideways, your car is going to again create positive camber, and it's going to have grip because since you started negative, it's going to get closer to zero. You're going to have more of a patch on the ground. Now you might think, oh, why not just do it with a camber plate? Well, you can, but a camber plate probably made of aluminum, probably has some cheesy metric bolts in it. And on a rally stage where vibration is everything and running through rocks and all sorts of stuff, it's probably going to vibrate loose, or you'll bend the aluminum and you'll have issues. Or it'll come loose and you'll have a camber change mid-corner and plow a tree. So, running a stock solid strut tube in the top works, or strut hat works just fine. Now, the other thing on this control arm, the bottom of it is boxed in. Okay, these are just a stamped steel control arm. You're going to want to make them a little stronger. You can see where this one's gotten hit. I've seen street cars bend them. Whenever I crashed my car, it bent them pretty good. So make sure that you reinforce this, especially if you're going to extend it. Reinforce your control arms. Tension rod, stock tension rod. Pretty sure these are stock rubber bushings. Yep, no poly bushings in this one. So, one might think in rally you want solid bushings and stuff like that, but kind of having a little more flexibleness in your car, I don't know, keeps it a little more numb, keeps you from being a little twitchy, but that's basically the front end setup. Notice too, this does have a coil spring, like a T3 Techno-Toy Tuning weld-on sleeve and a spring. I'm pretty sure that this spring is taller than your regular old Rx7 spring kit. I think it's like taller height-wise. I think the other ones are a little shorter. I could be wrong. I've only ever had one other car that I put those on. So, but much like my yellow car, the yellow car has no adjustment. It just has a collar welded on and a big long like Jeep coil spring. So I think the long spring just kind of helps with not getting into the super stiff part of the spring. Not that you could run like just a lesser spring rate. So one thing you're going to notice, this car does not have bigger strut tubes, or we'll just say bigger strut inserts like the actual shock absorber part. What you can do with these, and my yellow car is done this way, I have on that car just a standard like 2-inch inner diameter tube welded to the spindle, and then it runs a Volkswagen strut. And what that allows you to do is this chrome strut bar here, or strut bar, the shock rod. For the Volkswagen stuff, you can get, for like an old Rabbit, you can get like a 20 mil rod, like a Bilstein, so that rod's way thicker. And what that does is basically it allows for like at full droop or at full compression and stuff, that rod's stronger. What'll happen if you hit a big jump or hit something hard, you could bend the chrome rod in your shock, and then when you hit the next bump, it'll go down in there and get stuck, and then you don't have any suspension. It's a real pain. When I raced at Southern Ohio Forest Rally, there was an Audi Quattro, like that inline 5-cylinder one, not the cool one, but like the 90s one, which is still cool, but just not the UR Quattro from Group B. And he hit a ditch or something, smashed the front end up, and his driver's side front strut got stuck at like half travel. So he's like 3-wheeling around corners and stuff. Still finished the rally, but not as fast as he could have gone. So that is also, it's important, but like I'm saying, you're going to build the car to the region you race in. So if you race out west and you're doing high-speed stuff and you're going to hit big jumps and you're going to hit stuff that's big like that, you might want to look into upgrading it. If you're going to race in like we'll call it the Midwest, Mid-East, like Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, stuff around here, it's so tight and twisty that you're barely going to get out of third or fourth gear, and you're only going to run like 60 miles an hour maybe, so you're really not going to hit anything that crazy hard to bust something up. But you never know. I mean, I crashed my car and broke stuff, so just keep that in mind. But don't let not having rally suspension keep you from ever racing a rally. Like, just go send it. You can always replace it. Another thing that is important, especially if you're going to run like a rubber insulated shock top, is having a limit strap. And if you're going to come off the ground. So right here, there's a limit strap, which you can't really super see it in there. There, you can kind of see it right here. My hands on. There's a limit strap in here. And what a limit strap is, if you're from the off-road world, that's basically keeping your shock from drooping down so far. Most of the time, shocks are set up so that when the full droop happens, the shock itself will bottom out. So the chrome rod will bottom out, and that's what will hold everything up. But, and this car has done it to me twice, these bushings up here have a rubber insert between a metal piece and a metal piece. If you jump this a bunch of times, you can jump it and that rubber will come right out, and then all of a sudden your shock free floats and then goes smashing up through your strut tower because it didn't go back in its hole, and you have a mad camber change, and you might smoke a tree, and then the tree might fight back. So keep that in mind. You may want to run a limit strap. Like I said, if you're racing STPR, put limit straps on. If you're racing Southern Ohio Forest Rally, you're not going to hit a jump big enough, you don't need them. So, like I said, build your car to the event you're going to race. Now, moving to the rear. On an RX-7, it's very important to reinforce the shock mounts here and here, especially if you run a coilover shock, so where all of the weight of the car goes to that. These cars from the factory have the shock and then the spring sits just right next to them. So the coil spring takes the majority of the weight, the shock just dampens it. But in, like I said, full droop situation, because there's no limit straps in the back, your shocks are going to hold the whole weight of the axle. So you need to reinforce that, otherwise you hit a jump and you rip the shock right out. So I've seen, there's a guy in Pennsylvania that races, it's like a Gulf livery 944, and I was talking to him at one of the last rallies, and he had a coilover shock in the back of his, hit the jump, the waste management stage at a STPR, when he landed, pushed both shocks straight through the floor. So keep that in mind too. Again, build the car to the rally you're competing in. You don't need crazy suspension to have fun. You only need crazy suspension if you're going to get crazy. So, also, like I said up there, you don't need a lift kit on these cars for rally. You don't want to have like crazy mad ground clearance. I mean, you want to be like good so you can drive over rocks, or you're not, board sliding into ditches and stuff, but you don't need a lift kit. You don't need to go out and raise your car up or do anything crazy. You're going to run a little bit bigger of a tire for rally, most likely, than you would anyways. So you should be okay. Like I said, the big thing, keep the bottom of it clear so that you can glide over objects instead of getting hung up on them. I think that's pretty much all I need to cover on this car. The last bit would just be get a good strut brace to go across the front. My yellow car's got a 10-point cage where the cage comes out through the through the firewall, ties into the strut tower, and then have another bar from the strut tower to the frame rail. So if you don't have that stuff going on, tie it in across. Also, the yellow car has a fully plated and reinforced strut tower on both sides, and then the frame rails are fully plated all the way down. Again, that car was probably overbuilt. This car doesn't have it. You'll probably be okay. I wouldn't see anything really giving you fits without plating that stuff up. And if like I said, build it to the rally you're going to. Build it to how you want to drive it, but don't let not having a reinforced chassis keep you from racing rally. Majority of the people don't have that kind of stuff. So, like I said, I think that pretty much covers it. You'll see on this one some weird stuff with the suspension, these sensors. Basically, like old school stuff would have like a Terra Trip, or basically a glorified bicycle odometer to tell them like their stage distances and stuff. So you have to keep that in mind. That's what this guy is. So this would tell you like stage. You would have your stage notes distance, and then this would tell you your distance traveled, because like my yellow car doesn't even have an odometer, it just has a tachometer, so no speedo or anything. This one does have a speedo, but you wouldn't want to have to rely on the driver. Most people nowadays use a GPS, so no crazy big deal. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, as far as toe settings, caster settings, you're going to run basically like just a good road setup would probably work for those. And you want to get a little bit of self-steer, so a couple extra degrees of caster, and then adjust your toe accordingly. But I think that should be pretty much it. There's really nothing crazy with these cars you need to do. They handle really well. They take a beating really well. If you're going to a rally, as far as spare suspension components to bring, I would say bring a spare set of rear strut shocks, because they're cheap. Maybe bring one spare front shock, and bring a spare top hat for your struts. So I've had these pull out in the yard. The guy that I got the car from had one of those pull out, and he crashed it into a tree. I'd say you don't need to bring spare control arms unless you have extra money, or spare tension rods unless you have extra money laying around that you can buy that stuff. Yeah, you might break them, but if that happens to you and you're not like campaigning your rally car and it's just your first event out and you wad yourself in a ditch and bend a bunch of stuff, you're probably not going to want to keep racing. Just in essence of saving the whole car, because when I crashed mine, I probably could have made it through the rest of the stages, but I was already 2/3 of the way through the rally. I just called it because I didn't want to drive a car that's broken and then crash it worse and hurt me or hurt my car more, because I was trying to push it on something that's broke. So just keep that in mind too. There's some spares you can bring, but don't expect to go crazy. And I would say to try to keep your front end as tight as you can as far as steering and stuff like that. Rally cars generally aren't that safe, or I gotta say generally aren't that safe. They should be safe, but generally aren't that fun or safe to drive on the street. I know like my rally car is real twitchy and stuff on the street. It's not fast on the street. It's not good. The brakes don't work that good for the street, but in the dirt, it's awesome, right? So it's just kind of how the car's set up. But yeah, I'll quit rambling. That's pretty much everything you need to know about the front end of one of these cars. Build it to your event. Go have fun. Get Cindy. Thanks for tuning in. Comment with any more questions. Like, seriously, there's not a ton of people that subscribe to the channel. I can generally address all your comments. So comment. Let me know if you want to see anything else. I'll gladly film any other RX-7 stuff that you need to know. Whether you want to know stuff about the taillights or the doors or whatever, I can film it. So yeah, drop a comment with any questions. Subscribe if you want to see more. I don't plan on like changing genres of vehicles, so rotaries and RX-7s. And we'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching. Keep it rad.